I think that the point to start that question is probably what does technology offer the consumer in financial services at the moment? And it's really three things. It provides information, provides the ability to analyze things, and it provides the ability to transact. Now, if you look at each one of those individually, from an information perspective, we all know you go look for information on the web, and suddenly, whether that is appropriate, whether it's accurate, whether it's unbiased, all of those things become an issue because there's a lot of information. So that's the first thing that technology does. Second thing, the ability to analyze. Tools are available to make almost any financial decision you want these days, all the way up to robo-advice that gives you the ability to go through a little decision tree and then make a decision on what you want to buy. I think most of those, however, is relatively simplistic in its analysis. It doesn't deal with complexity well. It doesn't deal with interrelatedness of financial issues. It doesn't deal with financial needs analysis and all the priorities that comes out of that particularly well. And then I suppose the strength of technology in the financial services world at the moment from a consumer's perspective is probably in the transacting space. It's the ability to buy things, it's the ability to get service, and as I said, it's the ability to get information. Now, well, many consumers, even today, spends a lot of time fulfilling financial needs using technology. Those needs, I would argue, is typically simplistic or single needs. It's the relatively easy decisions, it's the relatively uncomplicated decisions. And even in that instance, experience has shown that every once in a while a consumer would really like to talk to somebody just to make sure that the decision that they're making is appropriate. And that doesn't even get to the point where they actually start making the complex or what you could perceive as the high-risk decisions. Those decisions that you have to get right, like preparing for retirement, as an example. And I think in that space, there will always be a place for a financial intermediary of any description. I think in the world post-RDR, the one thing that a broker has that nobody else has is the ability to deal with comparisons across product providers and comparisons across products. I think RDR is very, very strong on what an agent is and what an independent broker is. So even in the future, when technology certainly will step up to dealing with more complicated things, ultimately people still want to talk to people, especially when it's the difficult decisions and when it's the important decisions. So even though consumers might be using technology to gain information or to do some basic analysis, at some point they would want to talk to somebody. And that's where the experience of the independent broker becomes relevant, his ability to compare things across product providers, to make options available to the client, to prioritize on behalf of the client. And I think ultimately just to apply the professionalism that's in the industry to help to try and make the best decision that can be made, especially for the important ones. Well, I think at the moment in South Africa it will be speculation. RDR is still evolving. From research that was done in the UK as well as in Australia, I think RDR to a large extent simply accelerates what's happening in the market in any case. So things like transparency of cost or making cost visible to the consumer is something that was a big factor in the UK, driving a lot of decision making. Something like making sure that appropriate advice is given and making the intermediary responsible for advice. All of those types of things that's inherent to consumer needs almost, or consumer protection if you want, is the kind of things that RDR accelerated in those markets. Now in South Africa, our world is a bit different because a lot of that kind of legislation has been around for a while. It started with PPR in the late 90s and it went through phase, it went through the REs and all of those kind of things. And RDR is just the next round of those kind of things. So I think without a doubt in the UK and Aussie, the RDR created lots of opportunities for independent brokers that was positioned correctly. And that position correctly was literally being able to deal with what the market demanded. RDR just accelerated that. From a client's perspective, RDR is certainly going to even further push the whole transparency debate. There's something in the wash at the moment, as far as that's concerned, from a CISO, the whole EAC approach that has to be implemented by October. That'll take the transparency of cost for the consumer even further than it's ever been before. That kind of transparency gives the consumer the ability to look at cost and the service that goes with that, And I suppose in the end gives the consumer the ability to make a value judgment. You know, is what I'm paying for what I'm getting, does that make sense? Am I happy to make that purchase? And I think the other point that goes with that is also the ability to compare and the ability to negotiate with the advisor. So that flexibility for the consumer, I think, is a big step forward. From an independent broker's perspective, RDR without a doubt gives the opportunity to differentiate more. The reason why I say that is, if you think about what RDR says, it talks about, I think fees is a given. That's going to happen. The necessity to negotiate those fees with the client, that's going to happen. And by extension, then making sure that you can provide the value that the client would want for what he's paying is of great importance. And then just logically from there, you'd want to offer value to the consumer that's slightly different from your competition. So that entire mix of what value do I offer, to whom do I offer it, and what do I charge for it, becomes a big step forward as far as the business of an independent broker is concerned. I mean, the extension of that is very simply that the way in which income is generated in those businesses change. And while that might be a tough transition, ultimately, as far as the business is concerned, a move from a great dependence on upfront commission to a more stable annuity stream that's built up over time certainly makes the business a lot more attractive, and I think ultimately creates the opportunity for an independent broker to build a business that has a value and that can be sold, which, you know, something that remains a debate to this day.